One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Welcome to the Rotary Club of Edina. I'm your host, Josh Sprague, proud president of the #1 club in the universe. I'd like to extend a special welcome to all our guests and visiting Rotarians from around the country and around the world joining us today on this Zoom call. Before we get started, I want to share a few quick tips that will make this a more productive and enjoyable call for all participants. First of all, please mute your audio during presentation. And as a corollary, for those of you who are speaking, don't forget to take yourself off mute when your slide comes up. Please rename yourself in the participants list if your full name's not there, as we will be taking screenshots for attendance purposes. Use the chat function today for your speaker questions. And as the program goes on, we'll collect those questions and get to them in order. Anything that we can't get to because of time, John will answer offline directly to the person posing the question. And then please remember this meeting is being recorded. So Tim, make sure to coif the hair you have left on that head of yours. So before we get started, I have a very special treat for you today, as we have a bonus video in the series we wrapped up last week. And that's because our current director of community service projects, Lisa Walker, was not in her position when we shot the videos last summer. As you recall, she took over the committee from Kenny Smith, who relocated to Colorado in the fall. So now let's see what Lisa has to say about this year's presidential theme, Rotary Connects the World.
I am proud to be part of the Edina Rotary Club, and particularly proud and honored to serve with others under this year's theme of Rotary Connects the World. For me, Rotary Connects the World is particularly inspiring because I am part of an organization that is dedicated to helping others, not just in my local community, but also around the world. To be able to be part of an organization that tackles issues such as polio, human trafficking, and clean and safe water supply issues. That is extremely gratifying, and also reminds me that we have a lot more work to do. But I am absolutely excited and inspired to be able to work with other Rotarians, both in the Edina Club as well as outside of our club and around the world, who want to make an improvement and know we together can make that improvement.
The cool thing is, some of those connections she is referring to are the reason we're having this meeting today. Thank you very much, Lisa. And now I'd like to thank today's volunteers who helped make this meeting possible, and invite past President and past District Governor Tim Murphy to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, a four-way test, and invocation. Tim?
Thank you, President Josh, and welcome everybody that Sandra and I didn't get a chance to welcome once the meeting started. Please bow your heads with me. God and Lord of the universe and the world, we thank you for the gifts, talents, and resources that you give us to be able to serve you by serving others. Lord, service above self is what it's all about, and as Rotarians, we thoroughly enjoy doing good in the world. Today we have a special program with partner Rotarians from Guatemala, from our implementing partners, with physicians, nurses, and hospital staff from across the world, that you've given us the resources to help with desperately needed water and pediatric care in Guatemala. We ask you to join us today, inspire our speakers, to inspire us to continue to serve you in all we do. This we pray in your name. Amen.
Amen.
And now if you'd all join me in the four-way test. In the Pledge of Allegiance. To the flag of the United States of America. And to the Republic for which we stand, one nation, under God, indivisible,
Indivisible.
with liberty and justice for all. And of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth?
Truth.
Is it fair to
Is it
all
fair to all
concerned?
concerned?
Will it build goodwill
Goodwill
and better
Better
friendships?
friendships.
Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Play ball.
Play ball.
Thanks, Tim. Okay, we've got a lot of great announcements today. First one is from this morning, as we all sat in on the chartering of the Ending Human Trafficking Club, the first of its kind in the world. This is a passport club started by Karen Wakulski out of the Minnetonka Rotary Club. And I just wanted to show a quick shot from that process today. Mark Maloney was on the call with some inspiring words and presenting that charter you see in the right-hand corner. So congratulations to Karen, all the members of that club, and all the people working on human trafficking, including those members from our own Human Trafficking Committee on the call. Also, from a club we co-sponsored this year, the first in the world, the Rotary Club of Minnesota Veterans. They're asking us to help them with their flag sales. You can see this small picture on the left. They're $5 each. We're not going to have an Edina parade, but you can stick them in your front yard on the 4th of July or even before anyway. The contact here is rotarymnveterans@gmail.com, where you can buy those. Please support that club. Jennifer Hendrickson has a quick announcement. Jennifer.
Yes, I am excited to share with everyone that we will have a few of our Rotary t-shirts and a hat on sale soon. So Becky and I are working to get the link up on our website, and you'll see it in the Barker next week. So you'll be able to order one of 4 colors or 4 different colors, and they will be in men's and women's styles, as well as the Rotary hat. So we're excited. The shirts are going to be $28 each, and the hats will be $13 each.
Rotary swag. Love it. Thanks, Jennifer.
Thanks, Josh.
Irene Kelly, our 2018-19 District 5950 governor, is here for a presentation. Irene, are you here on the call?
I am here, Josh. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
So I am here because I'm here to recognize the amazing efforts of your club in the 18-19 Rotary year. First one being your per capita giving. So you are #1 in our district, not surprisingly, because that's happened before. And congratulations to John Flynn, the leader of your club last year. #1 in per capita giving contributions to the Rotary Foundation. One of 1,550 clubs in the world that are recognized that way. The other recognition is that you you have received the Rotary citation. So the citation means that you accomplished 3 goals in 3 different areas: supporting clubs, the foundation, and public image. And that with gold distinction means that you even exceeded the 9 expected goals and achieved an additional 2. In your case, one being in the social media realm and the other one in social gatherings. So congratulations to all of the members of the Edina Rotary Club, one of the strongest clubs in our district. And congratulations especially to John Flynn. And I haven't seen John, but thanks for leading the club last year, John. My pleasure.
Irene?
Thank you, oh, thanks, John. You're on the call. Awesome.
I made it right from Detroit Lakes. Hey, Irene, it's good to see you today. And thanks especially for your kind words about our club. We've got a great group, and I couldn't be prouder of all of them. And certainly a big part goes to David Kleins, but Susan Stiles hard at it again this year. So we hope to have great results once again. So thank you very much.
You are so welcome. My pleasure.
Hey, John, everyone's got to graduate magna cum laude once in their life.
I'm still waiting.
You did
Great
it,
job. Great job, John. It's been such a privilege to mentor under you and to serve as your president-elect that year. Thanks again, Flynn, for your leadership. Speaking of TRF, Susan Stiles, our TRF chair, has an announcement.
All right, here I am again. Well, what an exciting recognition that we received for last year. John and David Kleins, who worked very hard to achieve those goals. And we are well on our way this year again. And we have a few days left. I can tell you that a lot of gifting has been happening every day. I'm receiving more gifts. in total donations, we're actually over $130,000 right now. Last year we were at 128. In our annual fund, last year we were at 100. We're just hitting up on 80,000. And I can tell you that last year from June 11th to June 30th, we collected $33,000. So I think it's looking really good. And I just thank everybody for participating and making it another great year. And I want to recognize additional PHF awardees. And we have Bob Bredding, Royce Pavelka, Ryan Wilson, Mike Martini, Toshi Metzger, Tom Cook, John Mazzara, Lisa Walker, Sam Thompson, Dan Hallberg, Sonia Tenjin, and David Kleins. And there are more. Every day we're getting more PHFs. So just very exciting to be in this role with the club. You guys are just incredibly generous, and I thank you for that.
Hear, hear. Thank you, Susan, for your leadership on this. We're clutch players. We're last minute, but we always come through. That's what I love about this club. The commitment is awesome. Okay, we have special guests on the call today, Doctors Sophia Posadas and Willie Menendez from the Escuintla Regional Hospital. Doctors, can you say hello and tell us briefly what's going on in your world?
Of course, it's so good to see you all. It's an honor for us to be in this Zoom meeting. We are very happy and very excited. Even though we are on the highest peak of our corona infection in Guatemala, our mortality rate in pediatrics unit critical care departments has slowed very much since the SunSpring installation that you help us giving.
Thanks everyone. Thanks my dear friend. Really, we appreciate this time. As Sophia said, the mortality decrease since you put the SunSpring in the hospital, except the last 2 months, April and May, because for the curfew, the government ordered that people can move free, and when the children arrive the ER, is so late. Suddenly they arrive in PCR. For this reason, the last 2 months we increased more or less 4% more, because the babies arrived almost dead. Maybe they were allowed for 2 hours. For the reason to transit because they can move.
We are on lockdown
for the curfew.
Yes.
This situation is very hard for us, because when I ask the fathers, they say, "I'm sorry, we don't have car. We don't have can move to the hospital." I call the fire team, but they can't because they are busy in another parts of the city. But apart of this situation, the mortality is decreased by the SunSpring. Thanks so much. God bless you, everyone.
Good to you all, and we love you very much.
Hey, the feeling's mutual, and it's so good to see you. And our thoughts and our prayers are with you as always. And we look forward to seeing you very soon. We're working on a project. We're coming back in spring of next year, of the next Rotary year. Sam Thompson's year coming up here real quickly. So we'll be in each other's company shortly. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you.
And now it's time for today's program. And just as a teaser to the topic we're on today, let's watch a quick video about how the H2 Open Doors project actually works.
In the world's poorest communities, the cost of bottled water is out of reach, let alone education, nutritional programs, and electricity. But with a little technology and a whole lot of soul, H2 Open Doors can transition communities out of generational poverty in as little as a year. We provide villages with an ultrafiltration system that turns contaminated water into drinking water that is 99.999% microbiologically pure. Each SunSpring hybrid uses over 5 miles of membrane strands to remove all bacteria, cysts, and viruses. The new SunSpring can produce up to 10 gallons of water per minute, 24 hours a day, using zero fuel, electricity, or chemicals with no cost of operation. Rotary clubs in the region mentor the village as they use SunSpring to launch a sustainable water bottling enterprise that can generate over $100,000 per year. Community members also learn to care for the equipment and receive microfinancing for items like family water bottles and sanitation supplies. Imagine the dignity and self-reliance that comes from quickly learning a business that helps to pay for their own education, healthcare, and more. To learn more and even participate in our expeditions, find us on Facebook and visit h2opendoors.org.
And now I'm going to bring you back just 12 hours ago when John and I sat down in the Rotary TV studios to talk about his life's work with H2 Open Doors. Let's take a look. And now it's my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, John Kaufman, founder of H2 Open Doors, major donor to the Rotary Foundation, and member of the Rotary Club of Peninsula Starlight in Redwood City, California, a location you may know more familiarly as Silicon Valley. John joined Rotary International 7 years ago with the desire to approach water in a completely different way, and quickly established H2 Open Doors as a service project of Rotary clubs worldwide with a donor-advised fund at the Rotary Foundation. In addition to his nonprofit work, John has owned and operated KLP Marketing for the past 28 years, providing promotional swag and digital services to the Fortune 1000. John's sister passed away from a 4-year battle with cancer about 11 years ago, and while they were on a trip to Haiti, they witnessed something that would change his life's trajectory forever. Helping the poor become self-reliant, village by village, was John's epiphany. Since forming H2 Open Doors, John has led 33 installations in 11 countries, creating water purification plants that are robust and sustainable. Over 500 Rotarians and friends have accompanied the mighty band of water warriors on these expeditions. John lives in San Carlos, California, with his 100-pound Malamute, who is eating him out of house and home. He also has a 30-year-old son who lives in California. Please help me welcome my friend and fellow Rotarian, John Kaufman. John?
Yeah, we got to do that.
Wait, we got to show the shirt.
Oh, yeah. Water Warrior.
Water Warriors. Have
Thanks.
a seat.
Wonderful to be in the Sprague Studios.
Welcome to Minnesota.
Yeah, thank you.
It is such an honor to have you, and thank you for flying all the way from California. Now almost twice, right?
Right.
We had to cancel that first voyage, and we've been anticipating this discussion for so long, and it's so great to have you.
I've been so anxious through COVID-19 to come see you that I grew a bunker beard and it turned white. So
see, I can't have that beard, or my membership will give me a lot of trouble. So even if I have a little 5 o'clock shadow, someone says, "Hey, Sprague, you gotta shave." So before we get going, I want to just share briefly with our membership. I first heard John Kaufman's name at the Hamburg Convention last year from my friend John Credelli, who's the Eden Prairie AM president. And at that time, John had been coming from the House of Friendship, where there are all these service projects displayed. I was kind of on the right side of the convention floor. He was on the left, and he was telling me about this H2 Open Doors and the SunSpring water systems, and I gotta check this out, Josh. It's so cool, and this guy John is so cool. And wouldn't you know, that conversation led to John coming to visit us while our friends from the Escuintla National Hospital in Guatemala were visiting here in Minnesota in the fall. John flew in, we had a big meeting with other Rotarian leaders and the doctors, and John ended up actually traveling to Guatemala to help out the hospital. More about that in a little bit. But before we get into your water mission, tell us a little bit about your background. So I know you didn't just land in this nonprofit world. There was something happened, and I want to hear just a little bit more about that.
Yeah, it was in the book that I wrote. You know that book that I sent you? The first chapter talks about this. So
There it is.
So thanks for telling me that you haven't read the book yet, but he's been president, so who's got time?
A long walk.
A long walk
on a dry road.
Yeah. I wrote that about our experiences on these various expeditions that we've taken to these different cultures. And they've just been amazing. And I think the people that have come on these trips have gotten more out of the adventure than what we've given to these villages. I mean, it's just, wonderful.
Transformational.
It's transformational. As a matter of fact, just as an aside, that Sunspring system, which is the water purification, the off-grid water purification equipment that we use, we had that on display in Hamburg. Mm-hmm. That very system was going right after that to be shipped to Nairobi for installation a month later that we did in July in the Masai Mara. And at the convention, helping us at the booth was Prince, who is a Masai warrior elder. And so he was showing, so one of the things that John had seen was the Sunspring, but also saw a Maasai warrior dressed in his, all of his regalia and beads and everything, and a spear, and, here's the Sunspring. And Prince would talk about, hey, this is coming to my village, and I'm learning about it, and it's going to change the women's lives. And so we'll talk about that particular trip, but that Sunspring went right from that show to Kenya.
Wow.
For the next month's installation.
Wow.
But how did I get into this? That's what you asked me. How did I get into this? So I've been in marketing and promotion for years, actually probably about 40 years. But
always in Silicon Valley.
Always in the Silicon Valley, but we have national customers. And my current company has about 14 people that work for it. But my passion became water in a kind of an interesting way. I think in the intro you mentioned that my sister Jay was dying of ovarian cancer. It took her 4 years, but every time in between chemo treatments, I would scoop her up and we'd go on some adventure someplace. Mm-hmm. So we would go on cruises and so on. And this particular cruise, one of the port stops in the Caribbean was on Labadee. And Labadee is a port stop owned by Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines. And it's proprietary, yeah. And it's got zip lines and everything, and it's on Haiti. I didn't know it was Haiti because they don't say it's Haiti. They say it's Labadee. Oh, beautiful. Okay, so that's where we go. You're anchored out on the horizon, and then all these tenders come in and pick up 3,000 passengers off the boat, bring them back to the port, to the island. And a marimba band is greeting you, and they've got a buffet that goes for miles, and you're just eating and drinking and singing and dancing, and then you roll your full bellies over to the beach and you just suntan as you're watching the Royal Caribbean float out, in the distance.
Yeah.
And when that's all done, you get back on the tenders. 3,000 people are getting back on about 6 or 7 of these tenders to go back to the ship. And the cruise director, who's a little bit like trying too hard to keep your attention forward, a little bit too enthusiastic. My sister and I said, well, what's going on? So we go to the back of the tender and look back from where we were coming from.
Back towards the shore.
Back towards the shore. And we're seeing 1,000 Haitians coming out of the jungles to glean through the garbage cans for the juice boxes and the half-eaten corn cobs and the chicken wings, and they had, the women had babies on their backs, and they're feeding out of the garbage cans. There's probably over 1,000 families, family members just gleaning through this garbage. And I knew this was going to be her last trip with me because she was starting to get frail. Mm-hmm. And we just burst into tears. I mean, we were just completely overcome by this scene. So knowing that this was her last trip, I just instinctively said, as we're hugging, I said, I'm going to do something about this. This is inhumane. I'm going to do something about this.
That was your pledge.
That was my pledge, my promise. I didn't know what to do, but I said, I'm going to do something about it. And she died about 4 or 5 months later, and I started on this new trajectory to figure out how I can make an impact and move the needle on certain issues of grinding, generational poverty like that. I didn't know exactly how to do it. But then I started to realize that water NGOs in the world, non-government organizations
Yep.
dealing with water, that was something that was very impactful because it was so essential. And it didn't seem like rocket science, so I felt like I could do something in that arena. And I got involved with one of the largest, now it's the largest water NGO in the world. It's run by a movie star. A lot of people know who I'm talking about. And I'm looking at their brochures, and I just didn't like the way they were doing it. I had made a very large contribution, and I asked to convene all the members of the board because I was really troubled with what they were saying in their brochure, because I'm a marketing guy too. And it basically said, last year we did 1,000 wells in Kenya, and this year we're going to do 1,000 wells in Ghana, so send us money. And I said, you can't be saying that. And they said, well, what's wrong with that? I said, because you should be saying, last year we put 1,000 wells in Kenya, and this year we're going back to fix the 40 to 60% that are inoperable.
Right.
Because at any given time, 40 to 60% of pumps and wells are inoperable for lots of different reasons. It's not sustainable. Water NGOs haven't proven to be very sustainable.
So they get the feel good in the marketing, but they don't get the long-term impact on the communities.
Yeah. What benefit is it to do 1,000 wells? Why not do 50 wells that even serve more people and produce enough water that you can actually put them in the business of selling water and turning their village into a self-reliant entity, as opposed to a continually dependent entity.
It's interesting, as a marketer, and you cut through the marketing, you must have recognized the speak and thought, what's the real truth behind here?
Yeah, that's right. And my first, I figured, okay, well, I have a plan. I know what I want to do. I know how to fulfill my sister's promise. So where can I do that? Should I set up my own 501c3? And a friend of mine introduced me to a Rotary Club. I went to a Rotary Club meeting, and just bells went off, because I just didn't see the benefit of creating from scratch one more 501c3 charitable organizations. There are something like 4 million 501c3s chartered in the United States.
Wow.
And then you wonder, how many causes are there? Why all these different things? And so in the book, I talk a lot about this underbelly of the nonprofit world, and it's quite harrowing. It's not really a suspense novel, but I do throw some people under the bus.
It's a great sales pitch for the Rotary Foundation, though.
And that's why I was so attracted to the Rotary Foundation.
Yeah.
Because in Rotary, I kind of viewed it as, this is a power pack of passion. I can just plug into this. It's got everything in place, right? It's got a Charity Navigator top rated foundation model. It's interested in 6 areas of focus which mirror or focus in on what the SDG goals are, the sustainability goals of the UN. So it's a wide swath of services that it focuses in on. And I also noticed that, when I joined 8 years ago, or 7.5 years ago, we were this close to eradicating polio. Well, guess what? We're still this close to eradicating polio, and one day we will. And we're going to look towards what's the next thing that would have the highest impact.
Right.
And to me, it was water. And that's what Rotarians could really understand. And water is a force multiplier. Because if you can solve the water issue, you solve a whole myriad of issues. You really actually solve the 17 sustainability goals all at once.
So you decided the Rotary Foundation was the fiscal agent for the 501c3?
No, the Rotary Foundation is a 501c3.
Oh, so you just
So I started it as a project within there.
Okay.
And I established a donor-advised fund at the Rotary Foundation, so monies that I would collect would go into this lockbox, kind of like the Al Gore lockbox. Right?
Yep.
And that's available for us at the Rotary Foundation. So the Rotary Foundation gets this money.
Yep.
But yet, when I need to use it specifically for our projects, it's only available for our projects.
So you got your financial vehicle set up.
Right.
And then how did you get to Sunspring? I'm so interested in that connection.
Yeah.
And another interesting little sidebar is that John Crudelli was so excited about this project that he actually traveled to their plant in Colorado to check out the production of this SunSpring water filter. But back to your origin story, so how did you get connected up with that?
Well, part of that 4-year process after Jay passed away, and I was looking at how to solve big issues for the poor and get them to a point where they could be self-reliant. I probably spent about a year vetting different water technologies because I knew I wanted to do something with water, but all of the technologies that were out there were like biosand and chlorine and UV and all this garbage stuff that made these projects largely unsustainable. They would break, they would, they weren't getting service, they were hard to operate within the village.
Yep. So not mechanically sustainable.
Not mechanically sustainable, but then also the thought was so low. Most of the interventions were a shallow, sometimes hand-dug well, and you put one of those hand pumps on it. Well, that's 90% of the water projects that NGOs do, and I found out that was 90% of what Rotary was doing as well. Just a shallow well, and at the most part, those hand pumps, that services at the most 200 people. Well, I don't want to serve 200 people. I want to serve 2,000 people, 20,000 people, 200,000 people. The need is so great. And to put in something that inherently is not sustainable, that serves 200 people, after 3 or 4 years, they're literally being left high and dry.
Yeah.
Besides that, and the cover of the book that I wrote has a picture of 2 women walking with 40 pounds of water on their heads. So the other point is you put in a water point someplace, but yet the women and the girls walk all day to the water point and back with 40 pounds of water on their heads.
And that's not a safe journey.
It's
either,
not a
is it?
safe journey. And they're not going to school. And they're not, getting a livelihood. This is what they do. This is how they waste their time every single day. It's very harsh. So is there a different way that we can do this? Is there a way that we can scale up? So I started looking for technology that can check off several boxes that I had. One of them was, I want to do a lot of water at once. And I want to focus in on purification. Because I supposed that there was enough
sources
contaminated water in the world. Like we have an abundant supply of contaminated water that we don't always have to stick a straw into the earth and draw out of an aquifer. We could draw out of a pond, a river, a lake, a well, and purify that water instead. And purify it to the extent that it is just as good as Dasani bottle, or Aquafina, the bottles of water that we buy, just as good as that water, right? Exceeding the EPA standards. And I needed to find technology that could do enough so that it could put the village into the business of actually selling the water even outside their village.
So
that's what I found.
landed on the SunSpring, obviously a sustainable energy product as well, which makes it off-grid.
Right.
And then how did you transition from, okay, I have the technology, I want to make this an enterprise? Because to me, the genius of this whole thing is people struggled in 2 silos, water and economic development.
Yeah.
Looking for a product to sell when the whole time they had the product.
That's right.
How did you figure that out?
Well, once you've created from the raw source purified water that can be brought into your system without making you diuretic and making you sick and cholera outbreaks and all that. Once you've done that, then you have a commodity that not everybody just wants, they need it. So it's not like a village that's been doing, making belts and handbags.
Yep.
This is something that is sustainable, and it can create a lot of, a lot of economic uplifting for them. So when we put in a water plant, and the average price of a water plant is usually about $40,000, because sometimes it could be $28,000, which is the landed cost of a SunSpring.
Yep.
If we have a water source, and if we have a bottling building, if we have everything in there, it's just $28,000. But in the case of the Masai Mara last year, which I was describing, they didn't have anything. And the women were going to the river every day with buckets to just scrape muddy water out. And they were competing actually with the wildlife. And on a visit there, on another part of Kenya, I had taken 28 of us, and we went to the Masai Mara, and the Masai men, Prince was one of them, who had landed up in Hamburg with us.
He's getting around the world.
He's getting around the world. He had said that one of the Masai women in the river had just gotten trampled to death by an elephant, because the elephants make their own boreholes with their feet and then their tusks. And when it rains, that borehole fills up with water. Well, that's for the elephants. And if the people are, in a drought, are competing for that, they'll go out. And she was down there with a bucket, pulling water out of that, and an elephant came out of the bush and trampled her to death. So that was the Maasai's wake-up call. And so Prince and Amos, another Maasai warrior, had said, what do we have to do? Because we were going out on game drives with them, like safari drives. They said, what do we have to do to get you to do what you've been doing around Africa and other places? Fix our water problem. I said, well, there's two conditions. First, you have to have an enterprise. So you have to sell this water. We'll do this. We'll give you the means to produce 1,000 5-gallon bottles every day.
Every day?
Every day. 20,000 liters every single day. Purified water. And now you have to sell it to the base camps and to the villagers. But sell it for very cheap, like 3 cents a liter.
So they are, people are selling water too, but this makes it more of an affordable commodity for every family.
Yeah, and they're not selling purified water. So this is the only purified water in the Mara. So they've started to do that, but that was only the first condition. They approved that. And the second one, as I said, and the second condition is the women have to run the business. They have to decide how to spend the money, because if the men decide, they're going to buy another cow. But if the women decide on how to spend the money, they're going to buy nutrition for the children, classrooms, computers, internet, that kind of thing. And the women have never had any power or been empowered, or they've always been marginalized. And their biggest task was spending all day walking 5 miles a day to get the water. So they should be running this enterprise. So they do now.
Tell me about, so they're using these for 6 areas of focus, but you've also added a couple other projects on to these installations. Tell us about that too.
Yeah, and on every trip now, we've noticed that wherever we're putting in a water-stressed area, they also have no internet. So we're using something called Rachel, which is Remote Area Community Hotspot for Education and Learning. That comes from an NGO down in San Diego called World Possible. And they've created a little pizza box size server that's 1 terabyte.
Okay.
And they've loaded onto that all of Wikipedia, all of the Khan Academy, all the great books in dual language. So they've got it in Swahili English, they've got it in Spanish English, they've got it in Hindi English. And what this server allows you to set up a Wi-Fi network to up to 100 devices.
To broadcast the knowledge
out to basically a computer lab, to all sorts of different, but it's the content, it's not the internet, but it's setting up a Wi-Fi network to move that content out to various devices. So we set up these computer labs in all these different villages so that now the kids, the students and the teachers can bring in content, very deep content from 3rd grade all the way up to the 1st year of college. And then what we're noticing is, because we're sometimes electrifying these classrooms to run the computers with solar panels, now they have lights for the first time in their classrooms. They never had lights before, which allows the adults to come in at night and have adult schools, all using this curriculum. So then I noticed...
But wait, there's more.
There's more. Then I noticed they've never been using computers before, so I'm noticing they're squinting, right? So then I realized we've got another NGO friend up in Northern California called Restoring Vision. He's able to get foster grant readers. I just bought 1,000 foster grant readers for $500.
Wow.
They're brand new, all sorts of different styles, all different powers. And the first time we did this was in the trip to Guatemala that we did, with your club in Guatemala in January before COVID-19. We got in a project.
Let me see if I remember the world before.
Yeah.
Way back when.
Yeah. And that was a project where we did 3 Sun Springs, 3 different installations at different places. One was on the roof of the Escuintla Regional Hospital, which is what your club's involved in. And then we put it in we put 2, one at a school and one at the municipality of Santa Lucia Utitlan, which is a town of about 80,000 people. Mm-hmm. And that's providing bottled water for the community. And the municipality is selling that water for affordable rates, much less than what they were paying the national government for water coming in on a truck.
This is such a smart project. It's not surprising to me it came out of Silicon Valley. But tell me, in your mind, what of those installations, which ones stand out? I'm just curious.
I think of all.
You have so many experiences with all these people.
And that's why I had to write a book, because I had to detail all these different experiences.
Tell me your top 3 that come to mind
now.
Well,
the top one, because it was so recent and it was this year, was in Guatemala, which is not in the book. And this was at the Escuintla Regional Hospital, where when John came through Hamburg, John Credelli came through Hamburg, he told me about a hospital that is experiencing in their NICU and PQ, the pediatrics, experiencing between 5 and 11 deaths of children every month because of the water.
Yeah.
And it turns out that the neighboring community around the hospital had a large septic tank that burst, and it was sending E. coli into the water table for the entire area. And the children were being contaminated with this water, and literally 5 to 11 children a month attributed to the condition of the water, to the point where Dr. Willie came up and visited when I was here.
Yep.
And he almost had to get his index finger amputated.
I remember
because
that.
he had, with a scalpel, cut his finger a little bit, washed his hands in a sink, and his finger turned into a dill pickle. So he just overdosed himself on antibiotics, and it eventually went down. But he told that story, and I was just, okay, we got to do this project.
Well, let me tell you, I could talk to you for hours, but I know that our audience is going to have some great questions for you. So I want to thank you for being in Minnesota again. It's so good to see you again. And we're going to take it back to our Zoom call for some questions.
Back at you, and I've got a little surprise because John recruited me as a water warrior. Can you see that?
Yeah. Woo.
All right.
Looking good.
Be a water warrior with you. So we've got some questions from the audience today. First one comes from Sandra. Any work on taking water out of the air?
I've been looking at these atmospheric water generators is the class of that, and they're just not scaled up to do enough water. But it's kind of intriguing, and maybe eventually in certain parts of the world that might be intriguing. But you do have to remember that whatever these water generators are like swamp coolers or air conditioners. It's not new. And whatever it's bringing out of the air, whatever's in the air, besides moisture, it's also going to bring into your water source. So you would have to filter that anyway. So we haven't been too impressed with the technology yet, but perhaps it'll develop.
John Credelli asks, how do you fund the installations, and talk a little bit about the impact on the service trip attendees?
Yeah, we've done 33 installations, each one providing, a lot, like 10,000 people with 2 liters of water. So each one's very impactful, but only 5 have been with any kind of grant. So we don't rely on Rotary global or district grants. And we're not experts at it like Gary Peterson. And I mean, this club is, if you want to do a proper grant and you want to do it the right way with the assessments and everything, Gary Peterson is the guy, and Shelley, because I'm just so impressed with the way everything is done that way. We've not gone that route. We don't have that particular expertise, but what we do is we take expeditions out. So for instance, in Guatemala, we brought 32 people with us to Guatemala because what we do, our specialty of putting in water purification plants and building enterprises, is really a 3-day job. I mean, there's a lot of work that happens before we get there, several months of work. But when we get there, I'm bringing 30 or 40 Rotarians with us on these trips to get their feet wet into international projects and get them excited and inspired that Rotary is more than just the clubs. Rotary is an international organization that can move the needle on some of these issues. And so what we do generally is those 30 people will be paying for their expenses to come out, airfare and so on. But I'll also charge them between $500 and $1,000 extra as a deposit. And that money goes directly into our donor advised fund, but that is for the purchase of equipment. So they're paying actually for equipment, which is a tax write-off for them because it's directly related to equipment going to the charitable purposes that we're doing. So I would say half of our expeditions are funded by the actual participants that come on the trips and spend a week immersed in the culture and helping with the various 3-ring circus that we talked about, you know, the water, the computer labs, the eyeglass clinics. They get involved in that. And then the others could be by scraping together DDFs from various clubs, district designated funds, and or bowling tournaments and crab feeds when we used to do that. Remember the good old days? And we'd raise money that way. So a variety of different ways that it's funded.
And it's funny, in our interview, we used the word transformational, and that was my experience going on these international service trips as well. It takes you to a whole nother level of engagement. So that's an important piece. Past President Dennis Hikes asks, can you explain briefly the underlying technology that performs the water purification, so the membrane system?
Yeah, the cartoon doesn't really explain that, you know, well enough. It's membrane technology, which has been around for about 25 years. And the concept is you take your raw water source and under high pressure, you push it against membranes. And the best way to describe membranes to me is think of angel hair pasta that's about, you know, 2 feet long, each strand. And there's about 25,000 strands in a housing, and laid end to end, it's about 5 miles of these strands. Each strand, each piece of angel hair pasta is hollow all the way through, but along the sides, there's 1 billion pores. And these pores are smaller than a virus. So when you have the raw water under pressure and it's pushing against these membranes, only the pure water gets through those pores and comes out the hollow ends. And what collects on the outside of the membrane strands is bacteria and viruses and cysts, like Giardia and things like that. Anything that's larger than these pores. And so you've heard of reverse osmosis. Many people have. Reverse osmosis is a membrane system, but those pores are so small that you need an extremely, a lot of power to push water through these, and all of the essential electrolytes that you need are also stripped out of the water. So you get distilled water, which is not healthy. It's very acidic, distilled water. So this is water that is not healthy for ingestion for long term. So we use ultrafiltration membranes, which maintain the essential electrolytes, but take out the toxins.
Thank you.
I hope that explains it.
Katie Campbell asks, once SunSpring is installed and the business up and running by the locals, how is maintenance and support handled? Is there a hotline, or how do you troubleshoot?
Well, first of all, this is the exact reason why I started this, not as a separate 501c3, but as in the context of Rotary, because Rotary's got 35,000 clubs, and pretty much wherever I want to go around the world, there's going to be a Rotary club that we've connected with. Now, in the case of the Mara, there is no Rotary club, although there is one getting formed right now, I'm pleased to say. So we use whatever sometimes there's an NGO that's very invested. We always have to have a partner besides the village itself or the hospital itself that's going to be our eyes and ears on the ground. And we're committed to this project, each project for 10 years. And we also cluster projects within these countries so that we have many of these systems together. Like right now we have 6 of them in Guatemala. We have 6 in Puerto Rico. We have 4 in Africa and so on. And so within each country, we have a technical cadre as well. And sometimes it's a company that's trained in how to service this equipment if we need it to support the village. But the village is trained when we install it on a required 90-minute sanitation procedure where you shut the system down. You spend 90 minutes once a month. They must do that once a month. That sanitizes the system, but the system itself self-flushes and self-cleans every single day. But once a month, you still need to take it down to bring it back to factory specs. So we've not had a system go bad. The only system that we have is in the Philippines that has been inoperable, and it's because they ran out of water completely, and the Duterte government isn't being cooperative to allow us to rectify that. A long story, and it's in the book, and it'll curl your hair.
John. Past President Wu Zhibayan, we got a couple more minutes here. Wu Zhibayan asks, how much progress has been made as far as desalinization of ocean water?
Yeah, not much. That requires reverse osmosis, and that's why desal is such an extraordinarily expensive prospect, and the infrastructure for that requires governments really to be involved. So ultrafiltration systems and what we're doing can't do much about brackish or salty water.
So last question, and I know this is a 20-minute question, but I want you to answer it in 1 minute. How do you scale this thing up? Can it be done within the individual donation system of Rotary, or do you need something else, some other type of capital raising system? Because I know you want to scale this big.
We've actually formed a social impact investment firm, a Delaware Public Benefit Corporation, to go after social impact investment. There's more money available in the investment community for projects that will move the needle on these big issues than there is donor dollars. So we're experimenting with that. We're gonna explore that, and hopefully one day Rotary will be able to get a little bit more money into its projects than just what donor dollars would predict.
Take it away, Gare.
John, it's been, I think, a little less than a year. I met you last autumn when you came up to Minneapolis, and there's a number of things. I could listen to you all day because you're, number one, you're very passionate about this journey, and that passion just rubs off on all of us. And number two, you're very caring about the people that you're serving. Number three, you have a sense of urgency that that I really admire. You really, well, let's do it. Now just get in and do it. And next thing you know, you and Jack are on the top of the Escuintla Hospital, and it's about 90 degrees and sunny, and you're up there getting it done. So you're directly involved in the involvement in the process, and that all comes back to sort of this service to others. When I think of service to others, John, I really think of the work that you're doing, and so we want to thank you. And I'm gonna tell you something you already know, and that is that Rotary is a global network of 1.2 million neighbors, friends, leaders, and problem solvers who see a world where people unite and take action and create lasting change, just as you've been talking about. From literacy and peace to water and health, we are always working to better our world and stay committed to that end. In honor of your presentation today, and you as a Rotarian and a friend of our club and of our friends in Guatemala, we'll make a donation to Rotary's official disaster relief partner. You see on Josh's screen here, that is Shelter Box. And they provide emergency shelter to families devastated by natural disaster and conflict around the world. And John, I would just say thank you for the passion that you bring to us and for the help that you've you brought us, and thank you for connecting us with Jack Barker. He's also a #1 guy. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Okay. Quickly, our upcoming calendar. Next week is a transition meeting. I'll be handing off the reins to your next president, Sam Thompson. On that same day, just after the Zoom call at around 1:30, please bring your car over to 4720 70th Street, drive by, honk, wave, come in the driveway, and let's give Sam a warm Rotary welcome as he enters his brand new year as president. The following week, the following Thursday, there's no meeting due to the 4th of July holiday. And then the next Thursday, that'll be our first meeting of the new Rotary year in person live at Edina Country Club. Today's closing quote comes from many different sources and has been attributed to philosophers Maimonides and Lao Tzu, to 19th century writer Anne Isabella Thackeray Ritchie, to revolutionary Mao Zedong, and also to several Native American tribes, among others. And they all say the same thing, to wit, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. And there's actually one more phrase that I've seen added to this that for me completes the phrase best, and that is, but teach a woman to fish and everyone eats for a lifetime. John, thank you so much for flying on from California to share your story. We think more of this not as the end. This is really just the end of the beginning. We're going to start our work together from here on out. We have a lot of collaboration to do together, and we appreciate your expertise and your passion for this. Thank you to Doctors Posadas and Menendez for being on the call today. We look forward to seeing you in person with our own cadre of Rotarians coming in spring of 2021, if not before. And also, I'd like to give a special shout out to Eden Prairie AM President John Crudelli, who's part of this story and wrapped up all the way with what we have going in Guatemala. And everyone, remember that together we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves, as Rotary pursues its mission to connect the world in meaningful ways. Be safe, be well, and we'll see you next week. Meeting adjourned.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you all.
Everyone.
Everyone.
Have a good week, everybody.
Thank you all. Have a good week.